Okay, so we're looking at converting units of measure. So at lengths in imperial today, and then also in metric. So not really looking at other forms of measurement like mass and all that kind of stuff. So take a look. Inches, feet, and yards. Those are all imperial measures of length. If you take a look at a bottom scale of the ruler, the leftmost marking to the rightmost marking, the length is a foot. So it depends on your ruler, right? You might have a metric one, you might have one that has both on it, but take a look at if it's an imperial one. It's usually 12 inches, and each large increment is 1 inch long. So there are, as I think I just said there's 12 inches in a foot. Okay, you got to remember that. On the ruler, each inch past the first one is divided into smaller increments. How many units is each divided into? So usually it's 16. So each unit then would represent 1/16 of an inch. So you'll notice on it, if you look at it, like there'll be, so if these are the inch markings, then a half will be like this, a quarter will be smaller, and then these, they'll just get smaller every time, so that's eighths, and then in between there would be even smaller, 16ths. Okay. Use the ruler to measure the length and width of your textbook as precisely as you can. Express your answer as a reduced fraction if necessary. So pause it, the video, and go measure it if you have that ability. I measured it and it's 11 1/8 inches approximately, and width is 8 7/16. Now, depends on your textbook actually. So this was for the 10C actually, so yours might be slightly different. Examine a yardstick. So think about, we have one in class. You probably don't have a yardstick at home, but really it's a meter stick. So on both sides, one side is meters, one side is a yardstick. Okay, so look at the imperial part. How many inches are in a yard? So we'll count them out. Really, there's 3 feet in a yard and 12 inches in a foot. So there's 36 inches. The abbreviation for inches is IN, or quotation marks. How many feet are in 1 yard? As I just said, 3 feet. Okay, and that abbreviation is an apostrophe. Okay, so next part here, larger length. What imperial unit is used to measure longer distances? So if you ever go traveling in the States, they measure that in miles. How many yards are in 1 mile? That one you probably don't know off the top of your head. It's 1,760. So how many feet are in 1 mile? Well, there's 3 feet in each yard, so you multiply those together and you get 5,280 feet. Okay, so what is a referent? So what does that word mean? Really, it's an everyday object that would help you approximate these measures. So for an inch, really what inch comes from, oops, I'm just changing my pen here. Inches, the imperial unit of measure came from the imperial system, looking at a king. So a foot is the length of a king's foot. Okay, a yard is how long his stride was, like centuries ago. And inches was the width of his thumb. Okay, or more commonly, like for most of us, it's from the tip of your finger to the knuckle of your thumb. So tip of finger, of thumb. Okay, foot is the length of a foot. Now, you guys are in high school, so it'll be pretty close. For a little kid, obviously that doesn't make sense. Sometimes it's, some people think of it as from your wrist to your elbow. Okay, 1 yard is the length of a stride. And it's also the width of, it's used a lot in building, right? So it's actually the width of a door, of a regular size door or door frame, okay? And a mile, that would take about 20 minutes to walk. Okay, so those are some reference. State the imperial unit that is best to measure each of these following lengths. So the length of a ski run, that might be in, that's a fairly long distance depending on the ski hill, so probably in miles. If it's a really short one, maybe in yards. Height of a room, that would be likely in feet. Or maybe you could use yards. And dimensions of your calculator would be inches. Okay. So conversions, taking a look here. If you want to go from something that's measured in inches to feet, you're going to divide by 12 because there's 12 inches in a foot. But if you know the number of feet and you want to put it in inches, you're going to multiply by 12. So basically, as you're going to the right, here you're going to divide as you go from a smaller unit to a bigger, and then multiply as you go the other way. So 1 mile here, how many yards? It's 1,760. 1 yard, how many feet? It's 3. 1 foot, how many yards? It's how many inches is 12. Okay, so according to the highway sign, the next turnoff is 3 1/4 miles away. Determine in yards. So you take 3 1/4. Okay, and multiply by 1,760. You can do 3 1/4 if you know it's 3.25. Oops, not 4, 5. And then multiply by 1,760. So 5,720. Okay. How many feet? So you would take that answer and multiply by, there's 3 feet in a yard. So really with units here, so if I'm going to switch to red. So this is yards. Okay, and then there's 3 feet in a yard. So the yards divide out. Okay, and then you get your answer in feet. And I already have the 5,720, so multiply by 3 is 17,160. And that is feet. Okay, so if you want to show the units to help, go for it. Next question, the school council has 6 yards of fabric that will cut into strips 5 inches wide to make banners for the school dance. Determine how many banners can be made. So 6 yards is the entire, right? And it's rolled around in here. So we want to know how many 5 inches are there. So I would convert this into inches. All right, so if we have 6 yards, there's 3 feet in a yard, and there's 12 inches in a foot. So 6 times 3 times 12 is 216, and that's going to be inches. Now take 216 and divide by 5. And 43.2. So we can have 43 banners with a little bit left over. Okay. Next, Sam wanted to put wood trim around 4 windows. Each window is 40 inches long and 30 inches tall, determining how many inches of trim is needed. So I'm just going to draw a little rectangle here. Okay, so this would be 40, this would be 30. Okay, so that's perimeter. So perimeter equals 2 times 30 plus 40, or 2 times 30 plus 2 times 40. So that's 70 times 2 is 140 inches. Convert that to feet in inches. So it's kind of like saying your height. If I'm 5'3", okay, so I'm stating it in feet and inches. So what do I do if I knew my height in entire inches? You take the 140 and you want to divide by 12, okay? Now, actually, I'm not going to show it like that. I'm going to show it as a long division because I don't want a decimal answer, okay? So what do I get when I do this? I'm just going to erase this part up here, sorry. So 12 goes into 14 once. Subtract, I get 2 left over. Then it goes into 20 once, and I get 8 left over. So that means there's 11 full feet and 8 inches. If you do this on a calculator, you would go 140 divided by 12, and that would be 11.6 repeating. Some students will say 11 feet 7 inches. They'll round it. Remember, there aren't 10 inches in a foot. There's 12. So what you could do in your calculator, subtract the 11. That's your full feet. Then multiply that decimal form of a foot by the 12 inches in a foot, and then you get 8. Okay, so you can do it old-fashioned way, calculator way. Okay, then wood trim is sold by the foot and costs $1.79 a foot. Determine the cost of the wood trim. So if we take the exact value, then we would want to convert this to decimal form and multiply it. But in reality, usually, well, this tells you actually, it's sold by the foot. So you can't buy 8 inches worth. So you're not going to just say 11, because then you wouldn't have enough. So we need to therefore buy 12 feet, and 12 times $1.79 is 12 times $1.79 is $21.48. Okay. And then a scale. So a map has a scale of 1 to 3,500,000. Notice how no units there. So that's what a lot of maps are, because maybe you don't have a ruler with you. You could actually estimate just a piece of string or a piece of another piece of paper and just estimate 1 unit, whatever that is, represents that many of that unit. In any case, the distance on a map between 2 cities is measured to be 4.5 inches. Determine the actual distance rounded to the nearest mile. So this says this is your map here, and this is real life. So that means 1 inch, if we're using inches on the map, is 3,500,000 inches in real life. Now we have 4.5 inches, so we want to multiply it by 3,500,000. That will give us inches, which really is almost meaningless because it's not something that we really compare large distances. Okay, so 1, 2, got that in. All right, so 15,750,000, I think. Yep. Okay, and that is inches. So now we want to divide that by 12 inches in a foot. So I kind of do it in steps. You can do proportions, but I do it in my calculator. So divide by 12. So that's 1,312,500 feet. Then how many? So there's 3 feet in a yard. I'm doing it in steps. You can do one big calculation, totally up to you. divide that by 3 equals 437,500 yards. And then divide that by 1,760 yards in a mile. Oops, yard in a mile. Is 248.6 miles. Okay, and rounded to the nearest mile is 249. Okay, and then last one, 2 towns are 18 miles apart, but on the map the towns are 1 7/16 inches apart. Determine the scale of the map to the nearest 1,000. So we want map distance to real life. Okay, so the map 1 7/16 to 18 miles. Oh, so this is inches and this is miles. Okay, but a proper scale doesn't have units. Okay, so we basically have to show these in the same units. So what is 18 miles in inches? So we want to multiply by 1,760 yards in a mile. Then there are 3 feet in a yard, and then 12 inches in a foot. So multiply those together. So 18 times 1,760 times 3 times 12 is 1,140,480. 1 million, oh sorry, I forgot already. 140. And that is inches. Okay. And as well, we don't really like to, we always in a scale want to have 1 here. So I'm going to convert this to an improper fraction. So that would be 23 over 16 inches. Okay, so now we have 23 over 16 to 1,140,480. So we're getting close. Now I want to multiply everything by 16. Okay. Oh, actually, we got to divide by, yeah, so multiply by 16, divide by 23. So we basically multiply by the reciprocal. Okay, so then I'm just going to do this. Get my calculator. I have that previous answer. So now I'm going to multiply by 16 and divide by 23. So it's going to be 793, 377.4. And it says to the nearest 100,000. So 100,000 is this digit. So that's going to round up to 800,000. So that's your scale. No units now, because it's now all in inches, but we could use centimeters now. It's just the ratio. Okay, so that's the end.